Hello, everyone. I am ZHAO Chuang. Today, let's talk about Lucio the Amargasaurus. Amargasaurus is a well-known sauropod dinosaur that lived in South America. This dinosaur was only about 10 meters long. It was one of the strangest-looking sauropods, distinguished by its extremely long neural spines on its neck. Its neural spines always appeared in pairs, having a bifurcated end like this. The taxon that Amargasaurus belongs to is called Dicraeosauridae. Many familiar dinosaur stars, such as Diplodocus, were in this group. Their neural spines were all bifurcated, but the neck of these dinosaurs was not specialized like that of Amargasaurus. First, let's look at the whole body of Amargasaurus. It had a very long tail like other dicraeosaurids. This tail was longer than the body and neck combined, accounting for more than half of the body length, which is quite impressive. In addition, although Amargasaurus was a long-necked dinosaur, its neck was not as long as that of Giraffa titan or Mamenchisaurus. According to the proportion, it was not even as long as that of Diplodocus, but its neck was very thick. Amargasaurus has found a relatively well-preserved skull fossil. It is incomplete but enough for scientists to infer the general shape of its head. Its head was elongated, with the mandibular articulation at this position. From this angle, you can see a small protrusion here. Fossils show that its nostrils are between the two eyes on the top of the head, but when it was alive, there was a large tubular nasal cavity, so the nostril openings are located here. Then we look at its teeth. Currently, based on some fossils, we generally believe that the anterior of the sauropod's mouth might have beaks, or some hard integument to fix the teeth, resulting in the teeth being exposed. When it opened its mouth, the teeth would form a comb-like structure to rake the leaves down from the branches, and then swallow them into the mouth. Next, let's look at its neck. The neck of Amargasaurus had unusually elongated neural spines, approximately to the edge of this skin membrane. The restoration of its neck has always been controversial. Since this dinosaur was discovered, new theories have constantly appeared to explain why its neck is like this, and each theory is quite different. It was first believed that the neck of Amargasaurus had two rows of thinner skins, wrapping over the neural spines to form two sail-like structures, and named this structure the neck sail. The sail structures can be seen in many extant or extinct animals, such as today's Philippine sailfin lizards, dragon lizards, and even crested chameleons, which have sail-like structures on their tails or backs. These structures are generally used for display, making predators think that they are bigger than imagined and dare not approach easily, or play a role in courtship or male competition for territory and leaders in the group. The one who has the most conspicuous pattern would win. Besides, some people think the neural spines might possess very long keratinous structures instead of sails, because the sail structure might hinder its movement. Although sauropods usually raised their neck upwards and were believed to eat leaves from trees, they also needed to lower their head to drink water by bending their neck downward. Therefore, many scholars believe that if this dinosaur had a sail, the skin would restrict and reduce the flexibility to turn its head down. So they think it had no sail structure. Some other scholars believe that the two rows of neural spines were distanced quite close, so they couldn't form two sails. When Amargasaurus was alive, the distance between the two rows of spines was only 10 centimeters. It is tough to imagine what the role of two sails would be. Therefore, they think there would be air sacs between them, forming a large structure. As many sauropods had air sac structures on their necks, scientists believe that a structure for storing the air sac was in the middle of the neural spines, and Amargasaurus might be a normal sauropod with a thick neck. Another theory claims that muscles, not air sacs, connected the neural spines. The muscles grew and extended in all directions, making the neck look massive. As surrounded by a thick layer of muscles, its neck might be powerful. When fighting between families or competing with other dinosaurs, it would use its neck to ram opponents like giraffes. All the arguments have their truths, but they all contradict each other. We took the first two statements and combined them when doing the restoration. Much evidence could support the claim that it had a sail-like structure. In the past 2 years, some new studies have found that the posterior neural spines were often subjected to frontal forces, causing a certain forward-bending hard damage. The frontal forces were applied backward. Therefore, it is believed that there must be something connecting them, that is, when it was alive, this part was connected with muscles or membranes. We adopted the viewpoint of having membranes, but we haven't given up on the idea that it had spikes either, because these two statements are not contradictory to some extent.
Sauropods, especially dicraeosaurids,
indeed have had such spikes found in other body parts. A dinosaur called Dicraeosauridae had several spikes, at the end most of the tail preserved. A large number of spike-like structures have also been found on the back of many titanosaurs.
Not only sauropods,
but also hadrosaurids, or some carnivorous dinosaurs, such as Ceratosaurus, have found such structures on their backs, so this structure may be common in dinosaurs. The specialized long neural spines of Amargasaurus might be mostly covered by the sail, and the exposed part might be connected to some spikes, and this spike structure might extend all the way to the tail like other dinosaurs. Our restoration combines these two theories to a certain extent. Regarding its spikes, we should note that these spikes may split into two groups in front,
extending all the way to the back.
Each neural spine possessed a spike on top. Then, they merged into a single row at the pelvis. A similar feature can be seen on the skeleton of the Dicraeosaurids, that is, the neural spines before the lumbar vertebra were bifurcated
and fused into a single row at the sacrum,
and correspondingly, the spikes may turn from two rows to a single row. This is a bit like the large armor plates on the tail of a crocodile, which start into rows and merge into one at the end of the tail. We adopted such a way to restore Amargasaurus. About the skin of Amargasaurus, the dinosaur most closely related to it, and with well-preserved skin, is Diplodocus. Many relatively large scales have been found on the Diplodocus body, and some larger ones were evenly distributed on the body side,
in an irregular and evenly distributed arrangement.
There were also such scales on the shoulders. Now, let's look at the walking posture of Amargasaurus. When it walked, its forelimbs generally alternated with hind limbs. The next movement of the model will be this leg lifted up,
and then this leg lifts to move forward,
followed by this one, walking alternately like this. The footprints left on the ground are like what the platform shows. These two feet are far apart, and these two feet are relatively close. Sometimes when walking fast, the back foot will step on the front footprints.
This resulted in only a row of footprints left, or unsatisfactory preservation of forelimb footprints.
This platform displays how it walked on the muddy ground. The muddy ground on this side dried up quickly and formed cracks,
which is the condition for preserving a dinosaur footprint.
The conditions for the dinosaur footprint to fossilize are more stringent than those for skeletons. Generally, dinosaurs must walk in relatively muddy places. It might have just rained. Once the rain clouds cleared,
the weather would be scorching to dry this wetland immediately.
If no one walked or touched the place where the dinosaur had just walked over, it might quickly turn into hard mud that night or the next day, forming a rigid sculpture. Only under such circumstances, the footprints can be preserved. Then we move to its limbs.
Amargasaurus had 5 toes on its forefoot,
with a larger claw on the inner finger, and no nails on the other 4. According to the morphology of known dinosaur claws, we know that the claws of Dicraeosaurids were relatively large, so when restoring the forelimbs of Amargasaurus,
we made relatively large front claws.
Its hind limbs had 5 toes, the inner 3 had relatively large claws, and the outer 2 claws had degenerated. Its tail was very long, and it usually swung its tail high to the rear as it walked. The end of its tail was more flexible. When it walked, this part of the tail was relatively stiff, and the end would twist and turn. Many footprint fossils show that the end of the tail of long-tailed dinosaurs would occasionally drag to the ground, forming an S-shaped drag impression,
like someone scratching the ground with a fingertip.
The same is true for Amargasaurus. Its tail end was flexible, and might sag a bit if tired. Good, the above concludes our introduction to Lucio the Amargasaurus.